Welcome back to Salesforce Mojo. Today we're going to be talking about the Commerce Store templates and the different options we have available. So if you've ever wondered what is the difference between the B2B template and this new B2C template I keep referring to and you keep seeing online, that's what this session is for. So stick around. We're going to talk about the features, the pros and cons of using either direction and some of the audience capability. And we're actually going to go in and just do a quick poke around on the actual template live in an instance. So let's get right into it. There are a couple different templates inside of Salesforce's Commerce Cloud. We've primarily up to this point been dealing with the B2B commerce, and this is kind of the Aura-based community that we've been referencing throughout the build of this all. However, over the last couple of months, there have been a couple of new updates to the templates. The first one being the B2B LWR template. I had a video on this a little while ago about the new checkout that's coming out with it, but there's a whole lot more that comes with this template than just checkout that we will eventually do a video on. Now, the idea with this template is that it is the future of the B2B commerce template. The existing Aura one will still be supported for the time being, but all new enhancements will come to this LWR one. The LWR one is going to be faster, more performant, and have more capabilities longer term. The next one we have here is the B2C commerce, also on LWR. Now this one's been out for a bit now, but it's less known because of how the branding of the product has kind of been set up. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what's inside of this template and the features here and when you should use which one here. But at a very high level, we now have three templates as options for us. The B2B commerce Aura-based one, the B2B commerce LWR one, the B2C commerce LWR one. And really moving forward, we'll have a choice between the B2B and the B2C as the old one gets deprecated here. So I thought it'd be helpful if we kind of just talk about architecture here, because there's a lot of talk about templates. What does this actually mean when it comes to my site and my data? Well, at the core of all of this, we have our commerce data. Regardless of whether I'm using the B2C template or I'm using the B2B template, my products, pricing, entitlements, they all say the same. Slight changes here and there, maybe how you use it or how many records you may have, but the core data is all the same. And then we have Experience Cloud, which is Salesforce's presentation layer. This is where you have the pages, the component, and where everything kind of shows to the end user. Well, Experience Cloud is essentially a template of different components and pages, and that's where our templates come in. When we build a storefront, we get to choose which template to start with, and that will dictate what features and capabilities we will have available to us as we build out our storefront. So it may be obvious where we're targeting these two audiences for the templates, but I'll go over it because there's a little bit of nuances here. As you start to work with B2B commerce, of course, you're going to be working with a B2B type of audience. What they call that inside of Salesforce's terminology is buyers. On the B2B side, which you might also hear referenced as D2C, meaning direct to consumer, we call these shoppers. So on the left-hand side with B2B, we're dealing with still individuals at a company, but that's what it is, at a company, and they are buying on behalf of their business. On the right-hand side, we're dealing with just typical shoppers. I mean, these are people who are buying from a website all the time, Amazon, Target, etc. These are just individual folks buying products for themselves, not specifically for a company. And so the way we treat them and what information we show them and how they go through checkout and their buying experience needs to match based on, if they're a shopper or a buyer. Now, if you're familiar with the Commerce Cloud capabilities for Salesforce, you might be wondering at this point, well, don't we have a B2C Commerce Cloud today? And you are absolutely right. The existing B2C commerce, which is built on Demandware, is really targeted towards the enterprise use cases. So think the Adidas and all of the big names of the world, which are required for high volume, high throughput, high checkout rate, and all the things that an enterprise business would need. Now, that's not what this is for. This B2C use case is definitely for businesses who don't need that level of sophistication and capability. So think, you already have a B2C site and you want to do a pop-up on a B2C site to try out a new product line going direct to consumer. Or, if you're maybe a medium-sized business or a small business and you want to use this alongside your B2B commerce site, that's kind of the context and how this will be used. So hopefully that's a helpful distinction for those of you who are familiar with the space and kind of where and why you would use this B2C versus the other B2C commerce. So this is a lot, and I'm just going to go through this quickly here from a future comparison. You can definitely pause the video if you want to look more at this. The other thing I'll mention is that this is definitely not all of the features. I really put a couple on here to kind of illustrate the B2C side of this, but there's a lot more features on the core capabilities that isn't illustrated here. But I'll go through this really quickly. They both deal with the same commerce data model. And so you can have a B2B storefront and a B2C storefront fueled off the same data model. And that's actually one of the power of the platform and having these different templates is you can have multiple storefronts off the same unified data. They both have public APIs with great documentation on how to use them. They both have standard checkout capabilities. And this is where it starts to differ a little bit here. The control of pricing and product visibility. With B2B, we have buyer groups and the ability to show and hide products based on those buyer groups. With B2C, you only have one buyer group available to you. So that means that you have global prices and global products, which kind of makes sense from a B2C side, but it's a key distinction of how the two templates here use the data. Guest checkout. Again, this is a B2C type of capability, right? On a B2B side, we need to know what business you're a part of. We need to know, what agreements we have in place and what prices are in place. With the B2C side, we want you to be able to go through checkout as quickly as possible. So that's where that guest checkout comes in. Next one is self-registration. On the B2B side, I did this as an open checkbox, meaning some capabilities with the self-registration where you can do some customization, which gives you the ability to use person accounts or maybe in some cases bucket accounts, although I wouldn't strongly recommend that one. But on the B2C side, you have that kind of out of the box. The next one down, instant recommendations, same thing. B2C has components available to use these APIs out of the box. B2B, the APIs are available and you can turn on some of them, but you have to build the components yourself. And the next one down is storefront activity. Again, it's only available in B2C, and then both have kind of standard components across both these templates. So you can see that there are some feature gaps between the two of them, but they're mostly where it makes sense, right? Based on buyer or a shopper audience. So now that we've gone over kind of the high level of the different templates and how those will be able to be used, now let's actually see it in real life. We're back in our Salesforce Mojo instance here, and we can see that we have our tiny homes instance or our storefront here, and this is the one that we've been using kind of up to this point. This is still based on the B2B Aura-based template, which at some point will create an LWR B2B one. But for today's purpose, what we're going to do is we're going to click the Create a Store. I'm going to go through a quick setup of the B2C side and show you what that looks like. And we're going to get presented with kind of the choose, the experience you love is the way that Salesforce does it, but basically choose the template here. And you can see that there are 3 templates in this instance that I can choose from. And I'll choose the B2C Commerce one. And as you go over here, I'll give you a quick overview of some of the features that are available. And some of them are ones that we've already talked about, and some of them are overlaps from the B2B side as well. But once I click Getting Started here and give it a name, so let's call this Tiny Homes B2C. And we'll do the same thing here, Tiny Homes B2C. And once this goes through the creation process, we'll have another store in our instance. We'll have another template or another storefront that we'll have available inside of Experience Cloud, and everything's going to look slightly different. So I'll come right back once this is done loading. All right, we're done loading here. So you can see that we have our Tiny Homes B2C store, and it looks very similar, right? It has the same record layout here with the different tiles down below that give you the same kind of capabilities. And that's because from an internal perspective, the capabilities from the data and setup perspective are very, very similar. However, we're going to start seeing some difference here as we go into Experience Builder. So let's go ahead and click that. And once we load this, you'll see that everything kind of looks a little different here. Well, we're inside of an LWR template now, so it's a lot more flexible, more performant. There are a couple of nuances though, and one of the ones that I will say right out of the gate is that if you're building inside of this and you are trying to do kind of iterative testing when you're creating Lightning Web Components and pushing that to the instance and expecting those to load as you're logged in, that's not how this works. So you will need to republish every time you publish a new component. And that's a key difference between how the Aura-based communities, which are all basically load at runtime, to LWR, which is compiled at build time. And so it's really important that you understand that distinction here. But you can see as we scroll down, there's a couple of different things that you don't typically have with the B2B one, such as the Einstein recommendation component here, which we can click on and really configure how this shows up on the screen. And you can keep scrolling and kind of see that we have a couple of extra things that we don't have in the B2B one, like a footer, for instance. However, I will say that some of this functionality that we don't see in the Aura one up to this point is in the new B2B LWR one, which we haven't done a deep dive on yet. But let's go over into the product page. Another thing you'll notice is that you don't have the same structure of pages as you do in an Aura-based community. So there isn't a product list page and a main product page and then a product detail page underneath it. It's just product. So as we go into products here, you'll be able to see there's a couple of standard components, and we go into the component section. There's a lot more that we can use here. So if we wanted to add some breadcrumbs to the page, or take this kind of product information off and use some of the subcomponents down here, we definitely could do that as well. And then it also has some of the Einstein recommendations here as well. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these pages today. This is really just for a high-level overview of the differences between the two different templates here. But as we start to get more into this LWR world, I'll dive deeper into each one of these components and start breaking these down. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully that was helpful. If you thought this was helpful, click the like button. It helps us out quite a bit. Click subscribe if it's your first time here, and check out some of the other videos that are up on the screen now. They might be helpful for you as you're building your B2B commerce site. Thanks for watching.